Welcome back to the Nassau Hockey Podcast. James Nichols, John Zella here with you again. James, you've had a heck of a day. Are you ready to talk some hockey?
I need to, I think, because I need to be distracted from this craziness that was today. We don't have to get into it.
All right. Well, all right. Hope your heat's fixed or is getting fixed or whatever. I'm sure it's not nearly as cold there as it is by me, but
No,
cold is
thankfully,
cold.
no.
Yeah. Either way.
Yeah.
Hopefully that gets settled. But before we get into some Islanders stuff, which will feel a lot like Groundhog Day, in that this episode, the Islanders, you may have heard it all before, but we'll get to that in a second. I want to talk, and I don't know that I would have seen it, maybe not as early in the day, if you didn't repost it on Twitter. That no goal in the shootout in Florida. Did you
Yeah.
find, for those who didn't see it, I forget who the goal scorer or the not goal scorer was, the shooter.
Evan Rodriguez.
Evan Rodriguez, that's right. And it seemingly is a good goal. I didn't see an explanation.
So I have the explanation, and I know why it was called not a good goal. And when I said that, I don't know what world this is not a good goal in. People were very upset by that because it's in the rule book. You should know. You work in the industry, but whatever. Yes, I know all this. I just don't agree with it. It's a gray area for me because the way it happened was that Evan Rodriguez put the shot on the goaltender, and the puck bounced off of the pad, so he made the initial save. He didn't, at least to me, he didn't swipe at the puck again and like in a second motion to take a shot. It was just the follow through that the puck, after it hit the pad, hit the stick again and went in. And they said that was a rebound that he scored on, which I don't necessarily agree with that, because it wasn't like he made a second shot attempt. It's not like he got a second. It was in the shootout, so he doesn't get the shot statistic. But for argument's sake, if it was a shot in regulation, I don't think he gets two shots on that. I think it's like almost like a tip. So I don't know. Maybe that counters my argument for, if it should have been a goal in the shootout or not. But it was the follow through of his initial shot. So his stick just continued to go forward. And after the initial save, it happened so quick, the puck bounced off of the pad, then the stick and in. I think that's a good goal.
It is interesting because I had to watch it a couple times, and I noticed that a little bit, and I just wasn't sure if that was it. I wasn't on Twitter very much during the day today, so I didn't see the explanation. That is interesting. Given that that's the rule, and I think we all knew the rule since pretty early on in the shootout, when it was implemented 20 years ago, nearly 20 years ago. I think, I don't want to lump these two things together because obviously they're very different, and I think one's technically a linesman thing, and the Truba head slash is a something for the referees. But I guess zooming out, just the inconsistency in some of this stuff, and this is going back to like other big slashing penalties or other things like that. I think they always like kind of want to get it right, and it just doesn't happen that way. The offsides thing is not as out of control as it was. Every once in a while, they get a coach's challenge. It's really annoying in the playoffs, but I think you're watching a little more hockey than me lately. Are you still seeing a lot of inconsistencies around the league with refereeing? In the beginning of the season, it was quite bad. That there was a lot of conversations happening about that. Are you still seeing that game to game?
Yeah.
Devils and beyond.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for example, just yesterday, I'm trying to remember who the player was. Maybe it was Dawson Mercer. He was trying to hold the blue line, and he was ahead of an opposing player, an Islander. The Islander was backskating and backskated into Dawson Mercer, who was trying to hold the blue line, and they called interference on Dawson Mercer. And I was just I was very confused by that because he was backskating and Mercer didn't get in his way. He was ahead of him. So there's definitely still been some inconsistencies. I feel like every, group of referees and linesmen have, just a different way of viewing the game, and it's really kind of subjective every game. I know that they go through these trainings and these protocols to try to get it uniform and right across the league, but I don't know, man. I think every referee and linesman sees something different out there.
Yeah, and on top of that, I think the pinnacle of craziness, the epitome of craziness was the Florida Ottawa game and the ref saying everyone on the ice, 10 players, 10-minute misconduct. Or yeah, 10 skaters, presumably. Everyone 10-minute misconduct. I've never seen it before. I didn't know that was possible. And then you have players, barely any players on either of the benches. It looked like a beer league game.
Yeah.
And Paul Maurice is looking around. He's counting his players, making sure however many players are left. It was a little crazy. I had never seen that before.
I'll be honest, I loved it. That was awesome.
The fight was awesome, or the result. Or who
Everything,
cares?
all of it.
Both
I
of them.
thought it was all awesome. The the chippiness in that game, the Kachuk brothers, jawing at each other, their grandmother in the stands, they kept panning to with all of her nervous expressions was just outstanding camera work. And then the result with the cameraman where he was like, everyone on the ice, 10-minute misconduct. I was like, that's the call. Oh, that's the best call ever. I thoroughly enjoyed
Yeah, I
that.
guess
It was awesome.
I don't know what you do. I guess that's the right call. I certainly don't know what the right one is, or a different one would have been. Um, but it was just I saw the clip and just did not fully understand what had transpired before that. So then I'm watching some of the tape, and it was late in the game. There's 7 or 8 minutes left. Um, all but over, unless they were playing the Islanders, in which they would have let the other team back and win. But um, the game was all it was 4-1 Florida over Ottawa. That game was over. Nothing was in 7 minutes. Nothing was really going to happen. Maybe a little bit of noise here and there, but probably nothing. So it was interesting that that was happening that late, and even the impetus of it was hardly anything as well. I couldn't really tell. I don't know if someone got a slash on the goalie in the whistle right before, and then everyone just kind of grouped up in the corner and just all hell broke loose. Um, I also want to talk about a little bit about the Corey Perry thing, and nothing specific because we really don't know what happened. Although there are some things trickling out. I don't know that I want to perpetuate anything. Obviously, none of the rumors that were going on the last day or so, but um, I think just the craziness of that situation where it was bad enough where they can just. I mean, if it was against his contract, I guess it's not that crazy. You just terminate the contract. He went against guidelines of the organization or whatever, but it wasn't illegal, which I guess can happen. You can get fired from your employer having done something they deem that you broke the rules, and it's not necessarily illegal, just against their rules. I saw a lot of people questioning that. I'm not sure why there was some confusion there. Um, but a wild situation for a player that was kind of loved on that team.
And I think that's probably the hardest part about this is that not only was he loved on that team, but put into perspective what the organization's been through. Obviously, they did not handle the Kyle Beach thing correctly. And, you know, Kyle Davidson wanted to change the culture. He wanted everything to be different post, that situation. Obviously, another player, came forward with a similar accusation around that time. Things are not going well for that organization right now. Corey Perry was supposed to be one of those players who helped change that culture, especially because of Connor Bedard and what he's going to bring to that organization, and he's the new face, and things were just supposed to be different. Again, we don't know what happened. Obviously, the rumors are wildly speculatory. I don't really think that they have any legs. I think that it's just wild speculation. Um, but whatever he did, I mean, for the general manager to get choked up in the press conference about it, look, must have been something pretty bad. I don't want to speculate as to what it was, and by pretty bad, I mean enough to hurt Kyle Davidson, which is, I mean, how often do you see a general manager get his feelings hurt that way? Rarely, if ever. Um, it's unfortunate for that organization where they're trying to, as at least on the surface, change things from the way they've been.
And I did see, and I thought this was I'll say interesting take. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Um, but I saw a take that was, why aren't they saying anything about what happened? Their whole thing was transparency. And I don't know that, like, as long as it wasn't like illegal and something, I don't know that they need to be transparent with, especially not right away. The
Yeah,
whole thing with what they needed to do was hold people accountable. And they did that. He did something that was wrong, whatever that was, and they terminated his contract. Like,
it's like
that's what they said they needed to do, and they did that. The transparency piece is internal transparency. They were gonna do an investigation, they did it, that was it, and it was
right.
very, very quick.
It's the same as anybody getting fired from their job and not wanting to talk about it. It's nobody's business. It's between employer and employee. And if it's nothing illegal, then you don't have to know. Everybody's just maybe a little bit too nosy in this in this industry and needs to know everything. Needs to know, everybody kind of looks for something to get mad about these days. And maybe that's part of this. Everybody wants to know if they need to be mad about something because, again, look, the Blackhawks did this themselves, right? The way they handled situations in the past, this is why they're getting hammered so hard about this. However, it could just be something as you know innocent in the sense that it's not illegal, but it was against team policy and not
It could be
something that.
wrong and not legal. Like, I
Right.
think
That's
there's
what
a
I
line
mean.
there too. Like, I think there's a lot of things here.
Right. That's
And
what I
yeah,
mean.
they didn't do themselves any favors, as you said, and they deserve to be under a microscope. I think it's different that this happened and we didn't find out 3 months later, and then because it went public, they terminated his contract. Nope, something just happened, best we know, and they terminated it almost right away. I think there's a huge difference there between, like, on the transparency thing and what they're trying to hold, like, on their players, raise their organizational standards. I mean, the bar was pretty low, but, um, so I don't people were saying, they don't deserve any credit and this and that. I don't think they need credit. You just have to say, "Okay, they did in this particular instance, did what they said they were gonna do." I don't like the Blackhawks organization. Like, they have a lot of work to do. This isn't, necessarily a step in the right direction. It feels like it's at least better. Um, Whatever the policy was that, that he broke, or he could have just done a shitty thing. And it was just against what the team's values are now, clearly, hopefully different than what they were. And that's it. So hope like that the takes around that were, I thought, wild and bordering on wrong. I don't know. People, I guess, kind of are looking for something to get mad at. I think they're just really holding that organization accountable. Like, they deserve to be under a microscope, and every little thing, um, is going to be scrutinized. That's just
Yeah.
the nature of it now with that
Right.
organization. Um, Certain answers we're not going to have, maybe ever, but certainly not right away. So I wanted to touch on that for a second. Again, a couple of things just that were like, this is a little crazy, and um, the takes afterwards I thought were a little wild, but um, more about on the ice and kind of getting into the Islanders and overlapping a little bit with the Blackhawks. Anthony Beauvillier traded for a fifth round pick to the Chicago Blackhawks now that they have the room, and his 4 million, just over $4 million contract. Anthony Beauvillier. Safe to say the Islanders win that trade.
Yeah, I think that's right. Horvat's been great. Honestly, he's scoring goals this year. That power play goal he scored the other day had some real mustard on it. Now, on the Devils' end of that, I think Vanacek needs to make that save. I think he was in the right position, but I digress. Regardless, he's up to, what is he up to, 7-8 goals? He's playing well for them. He's one of their best players. Beauvillier on the other end, he's been exactly what he was for the Islanders. Inconsistent, streaky, points in bunches, and then disappears for a large stretch. And it's a low risk for the Blackhawks, who needed to fill a hole after they lost Corey Perry. He's a young player. Maybe he can mesh with Connor Bedard. Obviously the Canucks have really talented players. Elias Pettersson's there. There's no questioning Quinn Hughes is the best defenseman in this league right now. Sans Cal McCarr, but there's maybe just a different opportunity. Maybe there's a more of a opportunity for Beauvillier in Chicago, and again, no risk at all for Chicago to take that bet. So, I like the move for Chicago. I think I like it for Beauvillier. I like Beauvillier as a person. He's a nice guy. I want him to succeed. Maybe being in that organization for him is in a shitty moment, but I think that it could work out, hopefully, for him. But it all made sense to me in the end.
I think you're right, and I'll add that I think it's good because that's an organization with a lot of that's in transition and they're trying to be better, and it's a little bit of a chip on your shoulder situation. And he's played well with that kind of culture and that environment where there's young players, they're trying to get better. It's after years of this thing, they're trying to turn over a new leaf. There's a lot of this, and that was the Islanders. He was on that type of team. I understand that situations are very, very different, but it's a little bit of a we had to prove it kind of team. And if just on that level, that wasn't the Canucks. They thought they were good, and they were just kind of adding pieces, and they just kind of keep spinning their wheels. And I don't know if they've fallen off quite yet. I imagine that they did, but I mean, they banked so many points early on. I mean, they're still doing pretty good. Second in the Pacific, but if they're they open up a little bit of cap space, it's a dump for them. It's good for Chicago to get a young player and see if this isn't just the right environment for him. And he's still young. He's still useful. He might wind up just being a third line player, and that next contract is not going to be $4 million. But I'll give it to Lamoriello. Obviously, Horvat's working out, but Beauvillier had, I guess, enough. I mean, they gave up a first round pick and to Ratu and so on. But Ratu's been in the AHL, and he's not quite there yet. So it's tough to say for certain if the Islanders won the trade. But at this very moment, it seems like it's in the Islanders' favor. You can give as much as people are bagging on Lamoriello at the moment, and rightfully so. It's probably okay to give the win to the Islanders for now. And that's the only win I think that the Islanders have had very recently, although they were on a 7-game point streak. They had a couple wins around Thanksgiving. But then they just get right back to but they skipped they beat the Flyers, right? I don't know why I'm not remembering these games. It seems Thanksgiving seems like it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, they're shut out. They're shut out by the Flyers, and they lose in a shootout. They beat the Senators. Whoop-de-doo. They finally win a game and hold a lead, and they beat the Flyers. They win in a shootout against the Flames since we last spoke. But then before that, it was that West Coast trip finished with just more losses and letting in, allowing 4 goals a game. Pretty much that whole trip. Yikes. So from November 4th through November 18th. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games in 8 straight games. Now, some of these are shootout quote goals. They let in 4 goals in each of those games. All losses. That's bad on its own. That's, Sorokin not playing well. It's Varlamov not, um, only doing what both of these goalies can, but Sorokin's not an world beater at the moment.
So I'll say this much before you continue. I was sitting with Andrew Gross and Ethan Sears yesterday while they were talking about the Islanders' woes. In the season so far, were they 15 games in, 20 games in? 9 of their games, they've been winning by 2 goals or more in the third period, and they've lost all of them.
I thought the stat more than that. And that's a terrible stat, but Rosner had a good one.
Now, real quick, sorry, that was 9 in the third period. 11 they've been winning by 2 goals in total. 11 games they've been winning by 2 goals at some point. So not just the third period, but at some point. In 7 of them, they lost the lead completely. So it just goes to show you, doesn't matter how many goals they go up and how much time they have left. They are finding ways to lose these games.
Yeah,
Not great.
And the first 30 or 40 minutes typically has been okay, and you sit there and go, this is okay, this is the team that I expect, and then I don't know what happens, and that's why I wanted, the first thought after I put these notes together was it was Groundhog's Day. It is just the same thing game after game. And I thought the most surprising stat through all of this, and you mentioned some of them, blown multi-goal lead 7 times, been outscored in 31-13 in third periods. The Devils game was the 8th time in 21 games that the Islanders have given up the game winner in the third period. All these from Rosner of the Hockey News. But I think the most telling part of this information that I was reading is they've spent the least amount of time trailing in games among all NHL teams at 10 minutes and 37 seconds. So it's and what's crazy is typically you get third period power play or this and that, and you can pad your lead a little bit. And the power play dries up in the third. I don't have the official stats on that, but at least last night they could have given themselves an extra goal, and they missed out on a power play opportunity, or capitalizing on a power play opportunity. So they're not even trailing in games. It's almost I don't even know what the term is. It's insanity. It's definitely, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is insanity. And that's really what I wanted to talk about or ask the question, what's left to say? And at this point, kind of what happens. This is more than a trend. This is who they are. We were asking about an identity a couple episodes ago. This is who this team is. This is just a bad, let's call it second half of the game defensive team.
The thing is that, at this point, nobody really knows, what comes next other than, what we've had this conversation before. What can they do? Are they going to make a trade? They're not going to make a trade.
Well, we went through all that with Staple and what's the right thing to do, an interim coach in this. But now that it just, and maybe this is just a short episode because you just can't have the conversation. There's nothing left to say. Lee goes out there. I know I've been harping on leadership going, saying they need to go out there and, get the guys going or be the, the ones scoring the goals. And they're all doing that. Lee's woken up a little bit. He's scoring goals. Horvat continues to score goals. He has 9. Barzell's finally leading the team in scoring.
Yeah, he's got 6 goals too, which is pretty significant for, before December.
Yeah. What do you
for him?
What do you have, 15 last season?
Yeah.
So I actually do want to check that because I think it's interesting. But Hey, he's got 6 now in 21 games, and last season he had 14.
Yeah,
So he's
he's a,
halfway. He's nearly halfway, and he had 58 games last season. He definitely didn't. I think he's on pace for way more than that.
he's on pace for
Um,
24.
and that would be a
10
career
more.
high. Yeah,
It's
that'd be a
10
career
more.
high
Yeah.
for Barzell, which is absurdly low. But yeah, I think on the season he's looking pretty good. He might be able to crack 80 points again for the first time in what feels like a decade. Um, but certainly the better half of one. Um, what did you see in person last night? Because you're at this game, like you said, you were talking to a few people. You got to watch the team up close. I think for the first time since the last time that they played the Devils, which um, it was pretty early in the season, if I'm not mistaken, back in
Yeah.
October. Another loss, another 5-4 game. That one was in overtime. What did you see from this team? Is it as bad in person as it is when we read it afterwards? Because we're all kind of reliving, you and I talk about it on the podcast. And before that, we're doing notes. And then before that, we're texting about it. And then before that, we're looking on Twitter and reading other people. Um, you're writing about the Devils Islanders game. Like we're replaying every single moment like 1,000 times. And
Yeah.
that's just we watch it live and then we rewatch the replay and get everyone's take on it on Twitter.
Yeah.
We're just I'm almost seeing it in person would be a little refreshing. At least you just see it once and your palate's clean, just like move on in the game. Um, this other way, it just is like you're just bombarded with the same mistake 1,000 times, plus everyone's take on it. So I'm curious what you saw in person last night, and then you're kind of seeing this game from the Devils' perspective a little bit. At least is how you write about it. Um, the Devils were struggling too. This is a big win for them. Metro's still really tight. So, what did you see in the game? How do you see this game from a kind of a Devils perspective?
So, early on in the game, I thought that the Devils, well, for the whole game, at even strength, I thought that they were controlling the puck. When they put themselves in a hole and were on the penalty kill, the Islanders actually look, their power play is good this year. To their credit, they're scoring goals on the power play, which is something that we haven't been able to say before. Um, Now the thing with them is that to start the game, they played that heavy style that we're used to, grinding you out, scoring dirty goals. We saw that Clutterbuck goal. He was at the top of the crease. He kind of just swiped the rebound in. Barzell took advantage of a turnover in the neutral zone, and look, he's going to score on those 50% of the time. Um, he's got the speed to make those turnovers happen. He's got the IQ to force those turnovers. So those are some of the things that the Islanders have to their advantage. Now, the thing is, for some reason or another, they get to the third period and all of that just kind of fizzles out. They kind of start playing this conservative defensive. Okay, we're up a couple goals. Let's try and maintain that lead instead of continuing to strike. So they fall apart instead of pushing the puck forward and trying to make their best defense a good offense. They play this conservative style. It's almost like a prevent defense, and they wind up shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, their
So
structure can't support that anymore. Whatever it is that is different can't support what they used to do, which was the bend don't break kind of defensive mentality.
yeah,
And now it sounds like their best defense is a good offense. Like they need to just be controlling the puck and moving it out and just
yeah,
simply not having it in their own end. It used to feel like the puck was in the Islanders' end most of the game, and they were getting a low amount of shots, but high quality. They were scoring enough goals to win hockey games, and their defense was just able to not break. And now that they're not capable of that, I think that's a really good point. They need to just keep pushing the pace. They're finding success,
yeah,
obviously, when they're doing that. And against a young team like the Devils, who are just not going to give up, it's better to get them frustrated in their own end because they're young players. They want to run and gun, and if they're not able to do that, they're going to take bad penalties. Your power play can continue to stay on the ice. You can keep those players that are shut down a little more fresh. Like it just everything is very cyclical in the game. But once you let the other team get a little momentum, especially a team like the Devils, with all that energy, as you said, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Bet the action on the ice with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code THPN. New customers get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on hockey. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. The crown is yours. Bonus bets expire 186 hours after issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NEW YORK or text HOPE New York 467369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2023, all rights reserved. The holiday season can be chaotic, and I know I haven't started my holiday shopping yet. So while it may be too early to start decorating for the holidays, it's never too early to start your holiday shopping. So why not take care of it now before the crowds and packed calendars make shopping a total nightmare, especially when you can get some of the best deals of the season well before Black Friday. James and I both love Raycon's earbuds for when we're playing drums. It's easy to hear our favorite songs and make sure that we're not missing a single note. Raycon first made a name for themselves in the audio space with products like their everyday earbuds, known for delivering high quality and thoughtful features like a 32-hour battery life and a perfect in-ear fit for all-day wear and lasting comfort. And this year, they expanded their entire business with the introduction of Raycon Home and Raycon PowerTech. Their 5-star reviewed Magic 180 cable allows you to charge iOS, micro USB, and Type-C devices 8 times faster with 100-watt power delivery. Raycon is known for delivering high quality and thoughtful features at half the price of other premium tech brands. It's no wonder their products have racked up tens of thousands of 5-star reviews. To get everyone in the holiday shopping spirit a bit early, Raycon is currently offering 20% off of everything on their site, with select products up to 50% off. So beat the crowds and save now. Trust me, you do not want to miss out on Raycon's early Black Friday sale. Hurry now to buyraycon.com/THPN to get 20 to 50% off site-wide. That's buyraycon.com/THPN to score up to 50% off Raycon products. buyraycon.com/THPN.
The thing is, too, their discipline is not that great. Cizikas took a penalty. Holmstrom took a really bad penalty when they were on the power play to make it 4-on-4 hockey. That, when it's 4-on-4 hockey for the Devils, that's when they're going to eat. Like that open space, they're going to have that speed and opportunity to take advantage. That's when Jack Hughes goes to work. Jesper Bratt goes to work. And look, this is very relative to them playing the Devils, but you could say that about most teams in this league right now. Like, what team, aside from maybe the Islanders and a few select teams who are slower, what team doesn't have that fast speed and skill? I want to say 28 out of 32 teams are built that way.
Well, it clearly doesn't matter for the Islanders. They're an equal opportunity give up the lead team. They've done it to teams like the Devils, who are struggling a little bit. They've done it to they nearly let the Flames do it a little over a week ago, but they've done it to the Avalanche. They've done it to the Devils. They've done it against the Kraken. They've done like the list goes on. It's not like it's unique to anything. So it's any
Canucks.
team. It's any team that the other team's going to put out their best players in the last as the game goes on and they're playing from behind, you're going to see more of their good players, and the Islanders like can't handle that. Like
Right.
once that rotation, once the bench gets a little shortened, they're not able to maintain their defensive posture when the skill of the game goes up. I think I don't know if they're trying to roll the same lines. I saw somebody saying that the Islanders' best players weren't out there late in the game either. That might have something to do with it. The Islanders' injuries certainly don't help the situation. So, and even with them, it's like it doesn't really matter who you put in. I guess that's kind of good, right? The result of this game was no different than 2 nights ago when Pellick was in and Aho was in, or if Martin was in, or if Goche is in, or if Holmstrom's on the first line, or if Wallstrom's on the first line, or if Lee's on the first. Like,
Yeah.
and it's interesting in that fact where it doesn't matter. It's not even about lineup changes. So like that's not even an option anymore, which really puts Lambert on the hot seat. I think even more, where it's like he's running out of things to do, and he's clearly not changing the strategy of the game and how his team is playing. And when you remove the ability to actually make roster changes, and if Lamorello thinks I've given you the tools and you're not doing it, this is kind of on you. Lee's going out there getting his face punched in and trying to rile up the boys and be a leader. I don't know. Maybe we've given Lamorello a lot of credit and we've given a lot of shit, but the season's still young. It's only a quarter of the way through.
Yeah. And I thought it was funny yesterday. I'm trying to remember who it was that he turned the puck over to, but Mike Riley made his debut with the Islanders yesterday. He turned the puck over in the neutral zone, and the Devils, took advantage and scored on that opportunity. I was just laughing to myself, and I was like, even the new guys are already playing like a classic Islander right now. It's just like,
Yeah, I saw that, and I thought the same thing. I was like, so you just get there and they practice that?
right.
You're like watching video, like, oh, how do I play like an Islander? And
Granted,
it's just like fumble fucking the puck around in your own blue line.
yeah.
Like, get over, come on.
Granted, the scouting report on him is that, right? He's a puck mover. He's decent defensively, but he's good for a boneheaded turnover here and there. And that was the classic example of that last night. I thought Riley was actually pretty good with that one, you know, blunder aside.
What did you think of the move overall? So, given kind
Necessary.
of like and necessary, but I mean, I guess there wasn't any other option, right? They tried Bolduc. He also didn't look good. I think Lambert had some choice words for him. I didn't grab the quote, but I'm remembering something
Yeah.
saying it wasn't nice. I think would be underselling it. Um, it bordered on saying that he just had a bad game, um, and not just like everyone has a bad game and blah blah. That is like, no, you just can't do that shit. And so it was surprising. And then I don't. What were the pairings last night? I'm forgetting. Can't believe one day. Um, Riley
Grant.
and Grant. Right.
Yeah.
Um,
So the quote here, I think, is what you're looking for. There's no question that this is his opportunity to show what he's capable of doing. That was from Lamorello. You can't teach size, strength, and sense. We have to get him to be just a little bit more competitive. Not that he's not in certain areas. Now it's just in his hands. That's from Lou. For Lambert, I'm trying to see. There's just consistency that we need to see in game in and game out, regardless of whether you've been sitting out or not. Once you get your opportunity, you have to be ready to go. So maybe saying like, look, maybe he's not always ready to go. But I think that he was kind of just talking about that relative to his whole team. But the fact of the matter is that Bolduc isn't relishing in this opportunity he's being given. Um, he's one of, and this isn't saying a ton because of how shallow the prospect pool is, but he's one of their better prospects. Is he a prospect at this point anymore? Not really, but he was one of their better young guys, and it worked for him at the AHL level, right? He was an all-star in his first season, even, and it's just not translating. It's not clicking. Maybe the pace is just that much more that he can't catch up to it quite yet. But he certainly hasn't done what he did in the A up in the NHL.
The rest of the quote that I was looking for from Lambert was, "I thought he started the game slow the other night, and we can't have that. Thought he got better as the game went on. I thought his physicality was good. That was a good step for him." And I think the rest of the quote is what you had said. Um, have you noticed the Lamorel's quotes lately? Like he's saying something and then immediately walking it back
Listen,
in the
I
next sentence. It's not even like a different day. He's like, "Oh, our players are slow." I'm not saying that they're slow though. It's like, what?
yeah,
What do you? He said there was a quote about Barzell and Horvat that we expect more from them. And that's all he needed to say. He needed to say they're our best players, but we're expecting them to be. They're our superstars. We need better play from them all the time. We're never settling. They're playing well, but we're going to continue to help them. Push to reach their full potential. But he like walks himself all over the place, and it's been, I don't know. The narrative about him being old and this and that. I hate that shit. I think it's stupid. But when I'm reading that stuff, I'm like, it just sounds like someone's grandpa at Thanksgiving just fumbling over himself. I just don't like. I don't know. It's bothering me.
I think with things like that, it's so hard. These guys are getting asked the same question, and look, I'm part of that. They're getting asked the same question over and over again. There's guys who could have bad games in stretches, and they're consistently asked about them, and they want to defend the player. At some point, real emotions take over, and maybe they see it a little bit after hearing the question so often, and they're frustrated at a point, and they want better from this person, and they know, on their managerial end that player can be better. And when they're asked the question, that's just what comes out, and then they walk it back because they didn't maybe mean to open up so much in that sense. Um, but I don't think it's anything other than, you know, just trying to say, like you said, we need more from these guys. I'm not saying they're not giving enough, but we need more.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I'm seeing it almost every single time Lemrell's been quoted the last few weeks or month or so, where he's saying one thing and then immediately walking it back. I'm like, the first thing wasn't even that bad. Get under your guy's skin. This team needs to be, as we said earlier, they used to be this prove it team. And I don't know if they got complacent or whatever the case is. They're clearly not happy. I mean, just watching Lee get into that fight and was ridiculous. But they need to play with a chip. I mean, they should be, the fact that I almost wish they were lower in the standings still and that they're playing as an underdog. They're not good as the team that's good. They need, at least that was the glue for them. It's such a different team now. The players are very different. Um, it feels like what's around the team is different. Doesn't mean they're less tight, but there's something that's different around the team, and it could just be that the players have changed and personnel has changed and coaching, and um, they're firmly in their new arena. There's a lot less kind of um, there are less outside forces working against them, and it's just themselves. Like now it's there are no outside excuses. There's no road trip, there's no UBS arena, there's no COVID. There's no these old players and this thing. It's nope, on paper this is good. This should work. We've seen it work for the majority of games, and then you shit the bed. And like we started the show, I'm not really sure what there's left to say about this team. You you're down to waiver claims and LTIR to kind of make everything work. And it's not even good LTIR where you traded for somebody to like and you picked up a player along the way and you cap dumped here and this thing or whatever where you're like circumventing things. It was just no, you're arguably your best defenseman got hurt, and you claim that's like a Garth Snow move.
Well, I'll say this too. I sent you that note earlier, Sarah Volley on Kipper and Bourne's show. That's Justin Bourne, talking about the Islanders, and he said, another name to consider, and he was talking about coaches on the hot seat is Lane Lambert on Long Island. I think the Islanders have not found the consistency and success, certainly from an offensive perspective. And this is, quoting Sarvali, haven't found the consistency and success from an offensive perspective. And they'd like to have a little more. Lou Lamoriello is not afraid to make a coaching change. That is Frank Saravalli.
I have nothing bad to say about Saravalli. Really, any writer for that matter. I've seen some dopey shit.
Except me.
Well, you do ask me to edit your stuff. I'm just kidding. They clearly don't watch this team. Like, just to say that they're not like the offense, like I guess the main point is there, but it's hard for me. We're way closer to this team. I know that they're not watching the Islanders, but that's just wrong. Like that's not what
I agree. They're not
what's
watching
happening.
the team.
So it's hard for me to take that seriously at all.
I'll say this.
And not just like, oh, we need to mention the Islanders. It's been 6 weeks.
I agree that they're not watching the team the way that you're saying. However, I don't discount that they're connected in ways with people who know that are connected to the team. And I know that it's a Lou Lamoriello run operation and it's really hard to get information, yada, yada. I get that. But when you've been around and are as well connected as Saravalli is, you hear things. And that doesn't necessarily mean he's out, airing all the dirty laundry because he probably doesn't have all the information. But if he says something about, Lane Lambert and Lamoriello not being afraid to make a coaching change, look, Friedman said that a couple weeks ago he knows that, Lamoriello is trying to figure out something to do regarding, personnel change in the lineup. They're not just making this shit up. Like that doesn't happen. As much as people like to joke around about that on social media, they're not just making that up. And it's not one of those things where, we haven't spoken about this team in X amount of days. We need to, just kind of throw a segment in there. It wasn't even his show. It was something that he was asked about in a guest appearance. So I don't discount his credibility on that information. Do I discount maybe his accuracy in reporting how the team plays? Sure. Because
it's like the reasoning. He's like, well, Lamoriello can't like how the team's doing. And that I think discounts it for me. Like, well, they're not playing well offensively. So like Lambert, blah, 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 blah. I don't know, man. Like it's hard for me to believe the rest of the thing when the premise of what you're saying is wrong.
You think the premise of not playing consistently well enough offensively is wrong?
I mean, for the most part, they are scoring goals. The power play is good. It's not like, and we talked about that on the show. Nelson's got 10. I think he hit 10 recently. Horvat's got 9. It's like they're scoring goals. They can't hold a lead. That's far and away been the problem. There are some games they're losing. They lost the first game of the season 1-0, right? To not Phoenix, the Arizona Coyotes. Yes, they won 2-0 against the Blue Jackets earlier this season. Yes, there are times when they're not scoring goals. Every team does that, but that's not what the problem is. The consistency is on the defense. That's my point. Again, the premise is, half of it's right. The consistency, sure, they're not consistent. The other half is wrong. So I don't like when it's a question mark.
I'm taking a peek at natural stat trick, right? They are below 50% in Corsi for percentage 5-on-5. They're below 50% in expected goals percentage 5-on-5. They're below 50% in scoring chances percentage 5-on-5. They're below 50% in high danger chances 5-on-5. and they're even at 50% high danger goals for percentage 5-on-5. So I think what we're seeing here is a power play that's actually working. But 5-on-5 scoring at even strength is not consistently good enough.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. The 5-on-5 play has not been great. I think they're. I think it's actually a really good point. Maybe they're buoyed by their half their special teams. The other one's an anchor. Um, I guess I just see like 8 out of 21 games that they've blown that they've allowed the game winner in the third period and blown multi-goal lead 7 times. You just need 3 of those games to go the other way, and we're having a different conversation. It's a lot less of a trend, especially
Yeah.
because it probably doesn't happen 6 or 7 times in a row like it did uh, in November. It's easier to just kind of overlook it and be like, oh, okay, this is not great. They should really get that kind of shit taken care of as the season goes on. It's still early and blah blah blah. The
Yeah.
fact that it's just like a full blown, this is just who they are, and occasionally they don't. It's like they're not occasionally blowing a lead and they got to clean it up. They're occasionally scoring at 5-on-5 and then also winning the game. I think it's a good point.
Yeah, and if you're asking me what I'm seeing at 5-on-5 as far as scoring opportunities, let's see. Horvat scored on the power play last night, so that doesn't count. Barzell scored on a turnover on the rush. Clutterbuck scored on a turnover on the rush. Pajot scored in a turnover on a turnover in the offensive zone with, being opportunistic. Really, is what I'm trying to say. It was
Well,
an
that was a sick
opportunistic.
play by Barzell.
It was a sick play by Barzell. My point is, how often do you see this team carry the puck into the offensive zone, set up the cycle, move the puck around, and score? Little to none. And that's a big part of scoring at 5-on-5 is being able to have that puck possession in the opposition's end, and they're not doing that. They're scoring on the rush, they're scoring on the power play, but they're not maintaining puck possession.
I think the possession thing is huge, and it's not like it. And I don't think we're asking for what they used to do, which was generate one shot after having the puck on their stick for 3 minutes, but have any possession and any amount of consistency as far as getting shots on goal. It's a little maddening. It's like they're just not playing with the puck on their stick for the majority of the game. Yet
Right.
they're leading. They're still leading most of the game.
Which is interesting because, like I said, they have the ability to be opportunistic and make these goals happen on the rush, on the power play, all well and good. But you're not winning the game when it's played. The majority of the games played at 5-on-5, and those are the moments they're not winning. They're winning the other moments, which is good.
Well, 1 of 3, right? They're not on. It's not the PK.
No,
It's not 5-on-5. So they're only winning when it's they're only winning the special teams battle and it's the power play.
they're winning the special teams battle, and when I say that they're being opportunistic, like they're creating these chances. Like I said, on the rush, they're creating these chances. I don't want to say that they necessarily, like yesterday, Barzell forced a turnover, but then also the Devils stepped on their own foot and turned over the puck themselves, and the Islanders made them, pay for it, right? So they're
And
taking
they have to
advantage
do that
of
shit. Yeah. You
absolutely,
have to do that.
absolutely. I think there's something to be said about taking something that's handed to you, 100%. And that's good. Teams take advantage of those things. They should be doing that. However, when the game is played for the majority at even strength, right? Those are the times they're not winning those games. They're not winning the even strength battles, and that's the way the majority of the game is played.
Yeah, I don't know that there's. I don't want to just like end the show and that's the end of it. But like I really don't know what else there's to say about it. And
Well, I'll say this, right? And we've spoke about this last week. We could talk about it again, just because there's another wrinkle, another layer to this. The Islanders are also not getting the motivation they need. They're not getting the kick in the ass from the bench boss.
So I was gonna say, is it a personnel thing on the ice, or is it a coaching thing at this
How could
point?
it be a
Like,
personnel thing at this point? We've already had the conversation where, yes, there are a lot of the parts on this team that are the same, but there are also a lot of parts on this team that are different. And look, maybe
well, if
they,
it's not the right guys, like they didn't bring in, maybe Romanov isn't the right piece. That was
I
2 years
don't buy
ago.
that.
Like,
I don't buy that.
I'm bringing up
I
examples of
hear
like,
you, but here's my counterpoint. Romanov is actually a machine. You know, he brings energy, he brings pace, he can skate the puck, he can, lay a big hit. I think he is part of the solution. Horvat comes in, he's a goal scorer, he's a leader, he's pretty much been as advertised. He's not scoring at a 20% shooting percentage clip, but he's scoring. Like, they're bringing in the right pieces. Now, granted, could they use one more? Yeah, absolutely. We've been talking about this for years. They could always use one more. But
every team
they
could.
were able
Clear.
to. Why were they able to do this with less and with Barry Trotz behind the bench? They did this with less. We've
I
had the conversation before that this team on paper is better than they were a couple of years ago. It's the coach behind the bench. Nobody is giving them the motivation and the structure that they had before. Now, the wrinkle and the extra layer that has now part of this is, we said Jay Woodcroft's right there, right? They fired Jay Woodcroft. A lot of people say unjustified. They shouldn't have done that in Edmonton. Well, guess what? They're saying the same thing about Dean Evison in Minnesota too. Dean Evison is an excellent coach.
well,
Excellent coach.
like we talked about last week, and as Staple mentioned in his piece, you're really looking at like a Bruce Boudreau situation where this is an interim guy that
Fair.
comes in. Now, unless other coaching changes happen throughout the league and Woodcroft or whatever get picked up during the season, there's an opportunity to bring in somebody like that next year. It really depends on what happens the rest of the season. But it is, I don't disagree. I think I guess we're just finally saying, okay, it's not the players. I really left it. I was trying to split the blame a little bit because it really, at the end of the day, it's on the players for just stepping up and doing the thing. I've always thought it's like, you're a professional. You don't always need we all do this in our jobs. There are times when you just have to go and make the right decision and not just sit there and say, well, my boss told me to do the other thing. I don't know. That's like, if you told somebody that was what was happening, I don't know, they told me to do that. I knew it was wrong the whole time. I don't know. People call you an idiot. I think they started to question you as a professional. I'm not saying be defiant, but you can, as a player, you do have a little room out there. And at a certain point, just like simplify your game. Something's happening where they're overthinking something. And I said that about Barzell. He needs to play more north south. He's had success when he's done that. But even in the defensive zone, it's just like they're running around. Like you said, there's no structure. But we've all, like, I'm not lumping myself in with professional hockey players, but it's far from their first rodeo. Like, you don't know how to play defense. You don't know how to like be a team in your own zone. I don't understand. Like, you need you need someone to tell you specifically like a style to play. Like, I know how important that could be. Barry Trotz, but I don't know. Don't run around. You need someone to tell you that. Like,
It's not that. It's
I'm
that.
so curious what is actually said and be like, wow, Trotz versus Lambert and the structure in this. Like, what is Lambert telling them to do?
Look,
Like, is it
it's
anything?
systems are different, and if one part of the machine is broken, the whole thing is not going to work. And you know, last year when Timo Meyer came to the Devils, he admitted that the system in New Jersey is far different than it was in San Jose. Took him a while to get acclimated. Once he did, started playing better. It wasn't a easy start. It wasn't a smooth start. Systems are are different around the league. And although hockey, all the same goal is to put the rubber in the back of the net. I get it. They all do it in different ways. That's why there's European style hockey, there's North American style hockey, there's all these different styles of hockey. And depending on who's behind the bench and how they want you to play the game, every system is a little bit different. I understand what you're saying, and like, skate the puck up to the offensive zone. Like, don't let the other team have it. I get it. Like, that's the
Like,
simplistic way of looking at it. But
or play with energy, or like some of those things I don't understand. And I far be it from me. I've not played at like a super high level. I understand at a certain point where the team had a way that we played, and I had some success in like roller hockey and playing ice, whatever. At the NHL level, it's like the nuance is just so tight between one team to the next team, and it's really, can you just play with structure? And I think that's why I kind of leave it on them, on the players still. It's just focus. Like late in the game, it worked. You were leading the game. Whatever you were doing was working. And then what did you do? You need your coach to call a timeout, which Lambert rarely does. He did it very recently, maybe even a week ago. That's the help. What is he doing in the game? Like I think that's the thing for me. It's like during the game isn't when they're coach. They're not. There's nothing to coach. Like this, I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot to do during the game. You have to go out there and execute. That's what practice is for. That's what the tape is for. That's what strategy sessions or whatever. You tweak between periods and little things and what the other team is doing. And yeah, sure, you have different perspective. You're standing on the bench. You're not seeing the game the same way as the players. You're going to see things that they don't see. But I don't know. At the end of the day, it's on the players for me. But if the structure and what they're doing, and if he's lost the room and they're not responsive, they don't get it, they're not capable of it, whatever you want to say, yeah, I guess it's time. I guess it's just not the marriage we expected it to be, which is fucking crazy. Lambert was like, I'm just going to ignore everything we did. I'm going to ignore all this stuff that we did, all this success that we had, and I'm just going to fucking, who cares? What? How did you come to that conclusion? You need to make your own stamp. This is the stamp. It's like you fell face first into the sand. It looks like shit. Like no one knows what this is. This isn't the same team. I don't. They're the melted Madame Tussauds wax version of themselves, just disintegrating in front of us of this team we knew, and it's very funny when you hear. And that's like, I'm busting on Saravalli, but like a lot of reporters are like, "Oh, this defensive stalwart team," and I'm like, "Are you fucking watching this team this season? Even last season, like that was a thing, but this is not that team. It's not even that coach anymore. You can't say that anymore." I know
Right.
it's like a really easy narrative for you to think. Even on TNT, they were saying that. Like Gretzky was like, "Oh, they're really tough defensively." I'm like, you need to watch more Islanders hockey, or fucking don't. I barely want to watch this team. You're just like, you just watch the highlights. You're gonna be like, oh, and oh yeah, it's the third period now. This is when they fall apart.
Right. Well, it's funny because in talking to Andrew yesterday, he was like, "Watch." He's like, "They're gonna give this one up." Sure enough.
Yeah,
You know.
Someone replied to us on Twitter. I forget what I posted today on our account, and they said, "Oh, you gotta bet against the Islanders on," or something to that effect. That's what they were implying, like, and bet on the other team to take the lead, and after in the third period. And I was like, if you want to bet, use that promo code THPN. But I can't bet against the Islanders. If I even was, I'm not a huge better to begin with. But I don't know that I'd do it against the Islanders. That feels like, I don't know, making myself sad on purpose and getting paid for it. Masochistic is maybe the word for that. I'm not sure.
Wipe those tears with that green.
I mean, I guess I'll just get over it. But yeah, Lord knows I'll start losing money and the Islanders will start winning, which I guess that's fine. Losing money in the Islanders win the Stanley Cup, I guess that's okay. I don't know. I prefer them to just be good and also not waste my
You
money.
in a sense paid that for that Stanley Cup.
I think if that was the case, then I should get my name on it. If I was in any way responsible.
I mean, I think you're saying all factual things.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else for today?
No, that's really it. I mean, I feel like we're ending off on the same note we did last time, where it's just if this continues, there's nothing else they can do but a coaching change. And look, the one thing I'll say about that is look at Vancouver. Same guys. Look at them this year.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add at this point. We're a little bit of a broken record, but there's more hockey. They're in Carolina next, or they're already in Carolina and they're playing them soon. I believe on Thursday, as you're hearing this for the first time. Important game, in division. Everything's still really tight. They can just keep staying in it, and there's a certain point where they can kind of continue to wade in this bullshit and just catch a little bit of a break and start playing well for 5 games, and they're okay, like really okay. Now they need to carry that and not be 7-7-7 in regulation, but get over the next 21 games. But they're not far away from not even just being in the mix, but kind of being maybe top 3 in the Metro. Like it's for the taking. It's all right there right now. Just need to have a good 5 or 10 game stretch and really separate themselves. God, just I really don't think it takes much. I really don't. And I'm gonna hold out a little bit of hope here as we inch towards Christmas, and see what they can do. I really they're obviously capable of doing it. They just need to close out games, which is nothing we haven't said 10 times already on this episode. But if that's it, we can wrap it up.
Yeah, go for it.
Please rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. And thank you. I watched our Spotify Wrapped for the podcast. Very cool. 19 of you sickos, this was your top podcast. So thanks. And we're really sorry that this is the most listened to thing that you have. For all the people that their entrance episode was the one with Chris Botta. Thanks for finding us with that. And we're happy that you kind of stuck around. All the new listeners along the way, wherever you listen to the podcast. And yeah, we're 1,500 followers on Twitter and trying to be more active other places, and almost 300 subscribers on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. So thanks. End of the year, we're grateful for everything and everyone following along. And if you're not already following us, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at Asman Hockey. You find James' work at New Jersey Hockey Now in the 4th period. And James, you keep switching it up. I don't know if we go back to the old closing. I don't know if we need to keep going until we find something, and then we have to wear our pajamas inside out forever. I'm not sure what voodoo we have to do, but try literally anything.
Until next time. Hire Dean Evanson.